Yeah, Red Charlotte, hold
No
on.
one
Nobody
said
cares.
endorse
Nobody
it.
cares
I
about your
didn't-
labeling.
I didn't
You do
say
this
that.
all the
I
time.
really can't wait
Everybody,
to see the
everyone,
apology videos that
hold
come
on.
out from
Everybody,
people that don't have kids.
Red Charlotte, literally every time all you do in your arguments is just quickly try to label someone to something. Like literally telling.
You labeled these nuts on your fucking chin, you moron.
Of the store, either the store or the office place or wherever you are at, that you need to be there, right? Doesn't mean that they are patient enough for your child, right? So they're like, well, ma'am, Red Charlotte, you need to get the fuck out of here with your badass kid. Control your child or get the fuck out, right?
Yes, the solution would be to leave.
But you can't. You have something important to do.
Oh my god. So
Your kids
this
come
is a
first.
solution where
This situation isn't tenable because a parent knows their kids come first. A parent knows their kids come first and can ditch the appointment and
I'm
take care
responding
of
to
your kids.
Prime. I'm responding to Prime, not to you. I'm responding to Prime, not to you. Like, you're creating a scenario where you have this literally invincible kid that cannot be restrained.
Say that.
Kid doesn't listen to reason.
I didn't say that.
You also can't leave.
That's not what I said.
What?
You're not responding to what I said. I said they could be restrained. I literally just said that. Did you not hear what I said?
Yeah, but
yes,
you
they
also
can
can't
be
leave.
restrained.
Like
you can't leave. This is a realistic scenario. You have something to do.
No, it's not a realistic scenario.
Yes, it is.
Because a kid can't scream infinitely.
Oh my! They can scream. They don't have to scream infinitely. Did you not hear what I said? Again, you're not actually paying attention. So let me draw this out for you again, right? You are at an area. You have something important to do. You're a parent, and you don't have fucking childcare like so many parents here don't have, right? Like you got to take your kid. There's something important to do. You go, right? Your kid doesn't want to fucking be there. They got an issue. They got a problem, and you're gonna know about it, and everyone else is gonna know about it, right? They don't have to scream infinitely. No, they have to just scream long enough to get thrown out, because not everyone's gonna sit there and listen to this. So, like, if I'm like, let's say it was a place of business of mine, right? Something you need to get done, you come in here with your fucking kid. I'm like, get the fuck out of here, miss.
None of the hypotheticals you've constructed will ever justify hitting your kid for it. Like, period.
Okay, can I?
You're literally just the face of like the
here
consensus in pediatric psychology, right? That it is period. Like there is no argument against it. There's no association. There's no association.
Spanking on the ass is fine enough, right? Now, however, well, we'll get to that point. But let's go to Sen.
Okay.
And then Sen, and then CTV, and
it's like climate denialism.
Sounds good. So like, there's a few things that can happen here. Number one, like I can imagine a situation where you can't leave. Like, let's say you're like you need to do something important for your taxes. You're like stuck in a government place. You need to be there. There are some like immediate things that you can think of to solve this problem. None that like really adhere, but like the first thing, try it as hard as you can to bring your kid to these kinds of places. Obviously, that's like the first step that you want to do. Second, that there can be ways if like you have to use some form of negative stimulus. There are like ways that you can like get a shock, even though it's like not recommended, than causing physical harm. There can be like firm stares. There can be like, I remember when I was a kid, I would be threatened with like my mom would throw away something that I liked rather than like doing anything else, which is like the worst punishment that I would get. I was like, oh no, my Tom and Jerry CD, fuck, that shit was bad. But I remember that was like the biggest punishment that we would go to. There are like steps that you can do to avoid causing like direct physical harm. And like also I would say like there's some stuff that you'll probably remember more than like physical harm. And like but wouldn't be as like harmful, I guess. That's what I would like to say to like the direct response.
If I may, like Prom has given like hypotheticals that you haven't. I've seen.
How about if I may, it's my turn. That was the order.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if I may, right? Because I've been being patient. This seems like every single argument that I've heard about this thing, just it's like you're treating the kid as if it's not a human being and that you shouldn't be able to rationalize with it, have a prior relationship before you walk into this establishment, right? This seems like one of those things that you probably solve before you get to the fucking place by having an understanding with the child, right? And at some point, and there was quite a few times where me and my father sat down and had a real conversation about like, son, right? Like, I get that you think you ought to be able to do this thing. And while I may not necessarily disagree that you should be able to do this thing, the reality is that if I don't correct this behavior now, at some point in the future, the government's going to grab a hold of your ass and you're going to end up in jail, right? So because we're having this conversation here, what I'm gonna need you to do is put your hands on the side of that couch, right? And believe me, when I tell you this is gonna hurt me a lot more than it's gonna hurt you. And then from there were real lessons learned. And guess what? My ass ain't been to jail. So it seems to me that there was a very positive effect about me getting my ass busted growing up. But maybe that's just me.
So you're
See,
saying
you are
older
not
children
very
get
you're
helpful.
saying
kids.
a
I got a serious
pre-spanking.
student that's
He's
never
saying
been
a
spanked, so
pre-spanking.
I don't know.
He's saying a pre-spanking. Oh, amazing. So we're gonna go to a Fanatiq and then Ryuji. Steady, you want to go after that? Okay, it's Fanatiq, Ryuji, Steady. And another example that someone else brought up, right, is what if you're on a plane, like you literally cannot leave. Like there are plane situations where the exiting is not an option. So Fanatiq.
Yeah, I don't know. As someone, I got spankings as a kid. I didn't get a whole lot because I was a pretty good kid, or maybe my mom scared me, or maybe me watching my other siblings get spankings was enough to scare me. But I think most of the time when we start dealing with the human condition, if we're going to start making absolute positions, like you should never, ever spank a kid, or you should only ever do positive affirmation or positive discipline with kids, I feel like you're always going to run into problems because of the fact that the human condition is so very, very different, right? Like we recognize that it's just human beings are so vast and so disparate that the idea that we'll just have a single solution for children, it just sounds crazy to me. What I will say is I think that the idea is in general that spanking should be something that's done only in extreme situations and when you've exhausted like pretty much every other option. And even then, I think it needs to be very, very controlled. It should never be done from a place of anger whatsoever. It should obviously be done at a minimal level, considering the fact that this has to be an absolute last resort. Maybe in situations in which a child is fully able to understand what exactly they were not supposed to do, and they're doing some really strange or really strong deviation from reasonable expectations of what their actions should be. In those cases, maybe then it might be appropriate to spank a child if something is incredibly egregious and incredibly harmful, and it's something that you really feel necessary at this point needs to be driven home immediately. But again, that's so extreme that this should not be the norm. I do believe that communication is an incredibly important thing. I mean, there's God knows how many tests about that. I did read some scholar. I did do some like light reading on it, and one of the things that I took away is it said that exclusively positive parenting needs to be supported by research, including randomized trials with oppositional defiant children before being accepted as definitive. And I do think that makes sense. Like the idea that we would try to say there's some sort of consensus that that supports the idea that positive only rearing of your children is going to be definitively the best thing for them in all cases. I just don't think that there's any. I don't think most researchers would ever make a claim like that. I think spanking and regarding this kid in the grocery store, it's so insane to me that someone would be trying to make the argument, oh, this is just you're making up absurd hypotheticals. In my 2 relationships ago, I was in a situation where there was a kid and he wanted a freaking lollipop and he was acting a dang fool and he started crying and screaming and I'm embarrassed as hell. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait, I know you're not letting your kid act up like this. And she did. And I'm sitting there like, what? These are the things that we've always said in black circles, supposedly about white kids. This is a very black child, by the way, that was acting the same dang way, and it was probably freaking matic. The idea that these things doesn't happen. One of my brothers worked in a grocery store. Literally, we have so many funny stories about kids acting a dang fool, literally walking past an aisle with his arm out, knocking everything off of the aisle while his parents couldn't control him. So like, this is not something that's unheard of. Like, this is like, please, if you're gonna genuinely engage with this, like, be honest. These are
That
realistic
wasn't the
situations.
hypothetical given.
I did give that a hypothetical. I literally did.
Whatever.
I said
There
that.
was
You're not
multiple
so
hypotheticals.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Like when children are being unreasonable, like he literally gave 2 hypotheticals of children being unreasonable, and you
Literally
just go,
literally the thing that Fanatiq said was that like the parents were making like horrible effort to like control this child. Like,
No, I didn't say that.
well,
I'm sorry.
No.
Or maybe I worded it wrong. I'm just gonna say really quickly. It wasn't. Well, I guess what Well,
Also,
I would
spanking
say
is not the only negative reinforcement.
It
This is,
isn't.
like,
You're right. I agree with that. But I'm not saying that the parents were making a horrible effort. But I would say that when a kid has gotten to that point, then yeah, then there's probably been some sort of inconsistency. I think there was something that my mother was really stringent about. But it was before. It wasn't just spanking. There was a bunch of things where it's like, hey, guess what? We're gonna do randomly throughout the day at X time. We're just gonna sit for an hour. We're just going to do that. And her reasoning was, well, I know that eventually you're going to have to be in church. And when we're sitting in church, we're going to be sitting for an hour. And you're not going to have this this perspective that you're always supposed to be getting up and playing. So it's like, nope, we're doing quiet time now and you're not making noise. And she was like priming us before we ever even went to the church building. So we weren't those kids in the church acting a dang fool. There was a point, last thing really quickly, I promise. There was a point where the child services were called at one point for whatever. It's a whole long story short. But while we were in the courtroom, the thing that made the judge, where he like literally sided with my mother against DCFS, who was literally fabricating nonsensical stories, was because there were 7 children. I was 3 years old at the time, and all 7 of her children sat inside of that courtroom with no supervision, just literally sitting there and completely quiet, not making any noise. I was just sitting there doodling on my paper, not making a freaking peep. And the judge said specifically, these are the most well-mannered children I've ever seen in my life. I take my hat off to you, Miss Roddy. Go ahead and whatever, and just dropped all the charges, or just awarded full custody and made sure all that situation just completely died. I think discipline can be instilled, and it wasn't only through spanking. I don't think spanking should be a primary resort, but like the idea that like all spanking is unequivocally going to lead to all of these things out there, I don't think that there's any research to suggest that. Most of the research will be talking about severe spanking, and of course that's going to be arbitrary and so on and so forth.
The same research has light spanking too, has the like equivalent effects. Also, like the data also shows.
That's why when I was getting my ass busted, I just got it busted.
The data also shows, right, that there is no association with short-term compliance or long-term compliance, and also that they don't understand, like, hitting your kid will not teach them why what they did was wrong, and it
That's
won't
why you have a
lead to long-term
conversation.
compliance.
Yeah, you can
Oh
have
my
both.
God.
You can have
It's not.
both.
Like,
Yeah,
you can have
That's why you have a conversation.
If you have the conversation, then what's the point of the spanking?
Because they're
What do you
not.
mean? What's the? You
They're
guys.
not complying, but I don't
Yeah.
agree with spanking. But I understand why some people feel that way because they're not complying.
gotta
And
run.
at some points, you have to get the child's attention. I don't necessarily agree that that's the way that you go about it, but that's what their argument is. My argument would be that you can do a lot of other things to get their attention. Snaps, looks, like Sense Streams was saying. You can do things like threaten to take things away from them. You can, I mean, there are things that kids will respond to. If you know what your kid likes, and loves, even when they're in a fit of rage, if you tell them that they're going to lose that shit, oh, things change real quick. Dynamics change very quick. Kids
was
don't want to lose
horrified.
the things they care about. But it also means you have to know your kid, And I think that's the big part of it. If you know your kid and you have that relationship already, then you know their cues, you know their hitches, and you know what you can do to get around having to hit them. Worst case scenario, you give them a big old hug and you hold on to them for as long as you possibly can while they fight and rage, and you just tell them how much you love them right in their ear, and you whisper it to them, and they're gonna hate you for it. But you know what? It works.
Jason,
I wish I had that.
I wish you did too, but Jason was base as fuck there. I think there's there's a serious issue, right? Where it's like, okay, if everything that Jason said, everything that Charlotte is like proposed fails, right? Say like, oh, like you can't you can't calm the kid down. You can't physically restrain them because they're like too strong or they're too crazy. And you can't use any other form of like negative punishment. Not saying negative punishment can exist, saying like, oh, you can't play games anymore. Oh, you can't go outside for like this period. Like you're gonna go in your room, like timeouts. Like literally, if you're saying the only thing left is to fuck up the kid, is to plus ultra and put a hole through its chest, then at that point you are such a bad dad or such a
no
bad
one is doing
parent.
that. No one
Here's
did
the
that.
question.
No one even
Wait,
suggested
let me fucking finish.
It's called
dude.
hyperbole.
This is literally where it's like if we've exhausted everything and this kid still has issues, then clearly there's some underlying shit that has to be worked through, and you can talk about that with therapy. There's all this other, I feel like people are saying are trying to justify at the end goal, saying like, you know what, I had a hard day, I can't calm the kid down, might as well do a little bit of da 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 da, and it's like, no, sorry. Like, fucking figure it out.
Wait,
Hans, can you please stop not contributing to the conversation with your nonsense? Earlier, you suggested something. I forgot to get to this earlier. Earlier, you suggested some parent going to a random strong male in order to subdue their freaking child. Are you absolutely out of your rabid mind? No parent on God, no parent, 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 no parent on God's green earth would ever decide to involve a random stranger to discipline their children. Parents already have such a hard. There's so much literature and so much information that clearly shows parents have a problem with a step parent issuing any sort of corporal punishment on their children. The idea that they would involve a random stranger is absolutely unfounded. I can't think of a single parent that would ever do that. You know that that's absolutely absurd. Secondly, secondly, no other parent in God's green earth, no one here in this argument has ever brought up a point such as punching a hole through a child. We've all already conceded the notion that children should be disciplined reasonably. It should be obvious. I think most of us here agree that it should be in an absolute last resort, that it shouldn't be something that we jump forward to. So you keep stretching this conversation to such absurd hypotheticals or absurd hyperbole in order to make an argument, because so far you're presenting nothing. And it sounds reasonable that what people have been presenting so far, the idea of it being a last resort when there's been a humongous departure from what a child knowingly is expected, and it's something egregious that needs to be rooted out entirely in severe situations, then in those cases, some sort of light corporal punishment may be acceptable, right? Like going to the extreme of punching a hole, or you're a weak parent because you can't control a child. If it's at a point where a child is so physically unable to be constrained, then at that point, corporal punishment probably isn't going to be the answer there, because in that case, it's probably too late. It should be when children are significantly younger. That by the point that they're at that age of being able to be understanding to that degree, you would probably be able to communicate with the children such that you wouldn't need to do corporal punishment. It is something that probably needs to be curtailed off by the time you're older, and it should be again for severe, immediate things when it's fixed. For example, a child's about to run out into the street. You can pop them there. Or maybe a child's about to touch a stove, you can pop their hand after telling them repeatedly. Right? And in those cases, that's the thing, because a child might not be able to understand the notion, I can't touch the stove. They might not gather that. And I don't know how you would teach a child that, to be honest. I think, again, light taps in those situations makes a lot of sense.
All right. Can I explain this now?
Please be
All right,
reasonable.
then we'll go to Ryuji and StudyMate, because they've been waiting
First point,
patiently.
I'm not sure how long you've been listening, but the literal response of me saying, like, get someone else, get other people to assist you, was literally in response to Prime saying, as part of the hypothetical, that this kid is unrestrainable. This kid is unstoppable. You as a parent cannot stop them. That's literally what he. And now
No,
he's
that's not what I said. No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Now he's
No,
fucking
hold on. Nope. I'm not gonna let you do that. Hans, I'm not gonna let you do that, because that was not the hypothetical. I don't care. Hans, that was not the hypothetical. You and Red Charlotte apparently were not listening. No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. You can listen. You can listen. Holy shit. Holy shit. I will tell you why. The reason why. Now try to listen. I don't know what you're fucking high or drunk, right? You don't understand shit. Let me do it slowly. One more time, right? Let me make the situation clear to you, right? These are very reasonable hypotheticals that happen all the goddamn time in the world, right? So you're in a place that you can't leave, right? And I said specifically, yes, the child could be restrained, but restraining them doesn't do anything, because they're still going to be acting a fool, making noise, like making a scene, and making things very difficult for everyone else there. I said, like, what if, like, an establishment we'll find out. We'll test the patience of the crowd. The crowd will figure that out for you, very much so. All right. So that, and the proprietor, right? The proprietor of where you're at can decide, like, you need to get the fuck out of here.
I thought we couldn't remove them, Prime. I thought it was part of the hypothetical.
No. You as a parent, you have to stay there. because you have something important to accomplish, right? You need to be there. But like, for everyone else, they don't need you. So if you removing you is the easiest way. Removing you and the child is the easiest way to solve this, right? So get the fuck out. However, I need this thing done, right? I need to make this appointment. I need to apply for this thing, right? Like fucking assistance. I don't know what it is, right? But you got to be there. Or on the other side, right? You could be on a plane, right? Some place where you physically cannot leave, and the child is acting the fucking fool. Yes, you can restrain them, but restraining them doesn't stop them
How
from
long do
talking
they have
unless
to
you're
yell
like,
before you hit them, Prime? Until you beat them into submission, so they don't
not
like make
not long, not
out.
long,
Really?
not long,
Cool.
not long.
I don't normally say this, but I really hope you're not my dad. I like you, dude.
Ooh. Do you all have a problem with?
So we've taken away. So the person cannot leave because this is do or die. This is like bringing the ring to Mordor. Like Frodo has brought his fucking child alongside him, right? Like this kid, like this is so important. Like the world's going to end if this ring doesn't get in that fucking volcano. But fucking little like Frodo Jr. We're to call him FJ has to come along, right? And this kid's making a fucking ruckus, right? And like at that point, you have to beat him. I would probably like use a cost benefit analysis saying, yeah, fucking up one kid, which I think we've all agreed to that hitting your children is really bad. You'd probably do that to save, all of Middle Earth. But most of us don't have fucking lives that important. So if your kid's making a fucking ruckus, I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna wait a long fucking time or just leave the fucking store and then stay up late and go get that done.
It's
as
not
opposed to hitting them.
How is this hard to understand? That like people need to get shit done and they don't have childcare. Yeah, Ryuji, like help us out
There you
here.
go.
These people that literally don't understand basic
dude,
things that happen. Go ahead.
Dude, say you have a doctor's appointment and you're like really having some fucking back pain, and this is like doctors, like we're in Corona, doctor appointments are like rare to come by. Your children is acting a fucking fool. There's no way you can deal with it other than like disciplining them. But you take the time to just leave your fucking very important doctor's appointment just to be like, okay, we can't do that. That's like, and when you're in a public store, it's embarrassing.
So
it is embarrassing because wait, shut the fuck up, dude. Shut the fuck up.
No, that's literally what you just fucking implied, buddy. You literally said it's embarrassing to have a kid screaming at the store. Better do some fucking claps. Like, are you
shut the fuck up and let me finish?
How much to say what you're gonna say? The kid's embarrassing.
Ryuji, finish. Okay.
So I don't know how it is in other communities, right? But sometimes in the black community, when your kid is holy shit, shut the fuck up.
I muted him. Go ahead.
Sometimes in the black community, right? And I'm not saying all the time for fucking people out here. Like when people see your children wilding out and acting out, they do not think you have control or like you know how to raise your children. And that's what I mean. It could be embarrassing. Holy shit. If you could like literally take the fucking time to listen to any of the points that we give here and stop fucking wilding out like some fucking madman and just take the time to fucking listen. Jesus.
Yeah, and again, they may have not the plane, but they may have the option of ejecting you. You may not have the option of leaving because whatever you're doing is so important. Like, for instance, a doctor's appointment. This is very simple. All right, steady mate, you're next.
Yeah, I just have 2 points really quickly. Like, the first one that like if you have this child, like to the earlier point that you can't either remove from the situation. I understand like you guys are trying to make these like situations where there's literally no way of like just taking a minute with the child and like setting them aside and like giving them a stern talking to. I don't know about you guys. When my dad pulled me aside and just like looked at me and was like, yo, fucking stop this right now or you're just gonna be permanently fucked up when we get home later.
Wait, hold on, wait.
Like 7.
One quick question, clarifying question. Were you spanked as a child?
Yeah. No.
You never were spanked?
Nope.
Okay, go ahead.
Never was like spanked on the ass. No.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Is it's like if you let this yeah, exactly. If you let this shit get out of the like to the point where like it's like a 12-year-old kid who is now doing this, you failed as a parent, and like at that point you've just let this get so out of control that like it's more on you as a parent than it is on the kid.
Yeah.
Second point.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, what you do is I think that's when you just start actually parenting, take them out of the situation, and yeah, that's gonna take some sacrifice of like, yeah, you might need to fucking reschedule an appointment because you let this 12-year-old get like fucking unruly to the point where like it's just like he's big enough to like I guess like fucking throw you and 10 people that Hans recruited to like
what the fuck? No, seriously. Like, no, stop.
Okay,
Wait a minute.
okay,
Stop
okay,
right
you
there.
guys-
No,
you guys
because
are
it's so
fucking going
fucking dumb.
fucking
No, it's
weird
so
with this
fucking
shit.
dumb. No, hold on. You
Please.
guys not even. You guys won't even engage with the hypothetical, right?
We
Like
are
this is.
engaging
No,
and you're getting mad.
Hold on. Hans,
Obviously,
don't worry.
these guys
Don't worry. I
never
can
worked
mute you
in a
again,
fucking
Hans. If
public place.
you need my
It's
help.
like
If you need
obviously,
my
no
help.
problem. Obviously, these guys never worked in a fucking like public place like a Walmart or something, and they never seen children act a fool. So in their fucking perfectly, in their fucking
I was
perfect
I
world,
just
that
said
doesn't
that.
happen.
What are you talking about?
Oh, who said
Not
that?
you-
Who the fuck said that the child can't be restrained? But literally, you guys are maliciously not engaging with the topic, right? You're maliciously not engaging with it, right? Oh, this is so fucking unreasonable when this happens every fucking day, especially the lower your working class. Right? If you're a working class individual, you don't have resources, you don't have childcare, you're in situations where you can't get out of, right? But you have to take your kid, right? This is actually a very simple situation, right? But you're pretending like, oh, how unreasonable this is, right? Like apparently you don't know anything about how society works. Like not a fucking thing. These are basic situations.
Really quick, red
Here's
shirt
the
guy.
thing. I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care. It doesn't matter your circumstance. The negative impacts of spanking kids is clear. Not only does it not fix the problem, it makes your kid worse off. I don't care.
That's
I don't care about
ridiculous.
this
And, you know,
like
no,
this scenario
I
that you
just
think
wanna
happens
say-
every day. Doesn't matter.
No.
No matter how many times it happens, doesn't excuse hitting them. Period. Doesn't
No,
matter.
but-
Period. Ever. Endorsing hitting your kids is endorsing child abuse,
No.
no matter how you spin it.
Yeah, Red Charlotte, hold
No
on.
one
Nobody
says
cares.
endorsing
Nobody
child
cares about your
abuse.
labeling.
I
You do this all the
I
time.
really
Everybody,
can't wait to see the
everyone,
apology videos that
hold
come
on.
out from all
Everybody-
these people that don't have kids.
No.
Red Charlotte, literally every time all you do in your arguments is just quickly try to label someone to something. Like literally telling
You labeled these nuts on your fucking chin, you moron.
Oh my
There's
God.
so many questions I want to ask, but I'm gonna go ahead and let that
Like
rock.
I said,
All
I'm-
you do, I'm gonna finish.
that-
I'm gonna finish this statement if you guys don't mind, really quickly. It's okay. I'm gonna keep talking really quickly. If I can just finish the statement really quickly to Red Charlotte. First off, I think labeling people as like just like going for the optical win of just immediately saying something like, you're just like advocating for child abuse. It does nothing to the actual conversation.
Why are you policing? I don't care. Shut up.
It does nothing to the actual
I don't care.
It does.
I don't care.
It does nothing.
Okay, just talk to yourself.
Great, I will. It does nothing to the conversation at hand, in which we're literally trying to ascertain at what levels would it be appropriate.
What level do you beat your kids, folks? How loud do they have to be?
So Hans,
that what you
again,
mean?
Hans, again, I get it. If you're incapable,
Again. No, tell me.
I'm gonna
give me
wait.
a
I'm gonna
situation.
wait. I'll wait for
I
Prime to
know-
mute you.
I
I'll
know
wait for
you're
Prime to
gonna
mute,
wait.
or I'll mute
wow,
you.
you're
I'll
asking
mute
for
you.
Daddy to
I'll
help
mute you. That's fine. Okay,
Dude,
thank
Hans,
you.
shut
Okay.
the fuck up.
Listen, again, and I get it. It really shows here. It seems like you're literally incapable of having a decent conversation because every time when people are trying to engage, all you're doing is just stretching things to hyperbole, interrupting, and just getting extremely loud. I'm a nigga that gets loud, but typically I'm getting loud in defense of actually making a real point. What you're doing is just getting loud and absurd and interjecting at every opportunity because you don't actually like the arguments that's happening. 3 times now, Prime has gone out of his way to actually explain the hypothetical, and 3 times now you've either injected some crazy hypothetical or injected confines into the hypothetical that aren't actually present in order to make some ridiculous point, or you're just trying to optically put words there that actually completely belie the arguments that we're actually giving. No, I'm not saying that you have any right to beat your kids, and you can use that phrasing if you want to in order to make a point, but you're not capable of having a decent conversation, and it's showing. I'd probably cut that out. It looks pretty freaking miserable. Anyway, the idea is simply just saying, "Oh, you're abusing your kids," doesn't do anything, Red Charlie. The point is, for some people,
That's the empirical literature.
The point is, there is literature out there that talks about severe spanking. I would need to see some sort of literature.
Wrong.
I would need to see if you could just go ahead and shut the hell up for just a few seconds, and I'll finish my point, and then we'll be able to
Clown.
move on. I got it. I'm a clown, but you're the clown that needs to shut the hell up so I can finish. Okay. Anyway, show some respect and have some decency. Anyway, so the idea is, if we could see some, I've encountered literature that talks about severe spanking and talks about frequent spanking, and I can understand that frequent spanking or severe spanking, both of those things are incredibly problematic. But what I'm advocating for is specifically in desperate situation when children are younger, which it seems like you guys are, it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but I'm just hoping you guys can engage with this, right? Because at a point when a child is 12 or 13 years old, obviously it's gone too far. At that point, then the child doesn't have those things instilled in them. Red shirt guy, I would imagine, yeah, for my mom, she could just give you that look. And that look said, yeah, nigga, you better cut it the freak out. And so I knew I better get some act right. It was just a stern look. But that stern look, I had a psychological impact because we recognize, man, like if I keep going at this rate, I'm gonna catch some whippings, right? I'm gonna get popped or something. So then at that point, I knew I better go ahead, whatever. Red shirt guy, I do imagine probably at a super duper young age, your parents probably popped you a few times, like just little pops and little taps and things like that. And those things typically are what you're reflecting on as a young child to recognize, this parent has a significant level of authority and I can't just do what I want. Maybe they never did. Maybe all they did was yell at you. And sometimes, like, yelling really sternly at a kid can be startling enough to to kind of force compliance. There are different things that can happen. The idea is, if you do these things and instill discipline and instill respect and all of those things at a very young age, then you don't have to continue to spank them. Once they're old enough, then you can start reasoning with them. It always has to be contextualized. Spanking 14-year-olds, yeah, you got a problem on your hand. I don't think that makes any sense.
All right, cool. So
Just-
I want to ask some specific questions, and let's not use hyperbole. I would love. So again, Black Ryuji, you said that being in public and having a kid be loud is embarrassing. I want you to explain to me in detail a hypothetical scenario where the kid becomes so embarrassing that you have no excuse but to hit them. Fanatiq, I want you to explain to me where, like, if we're not in public anymore, in private, at what point does the kid become so frustrating that you are allowed to hit them? I want in detail. I want to understand because, like, as like a potential father in the future, I want to know when it's okay to beat my kids.
I can give
Wait,
you.
no,
Hold on.
he
Can
asked
I?
me-
Can I? Wait. Can I? Can I please?
No, dude, it's not just beating your kid. Like, you guys are making this fucking like this weird. Oh, you guys want to beat your kid? It's just.
Can I?
Wait, can I respond? Can I respond really quick? Okay, go ahead. You can.
No,
You can.
no. Oh, Nacho, hold on.
Hot stove slap on the hand.
There's 8 kids in my
Hot stove
family.
slap on the hand.
I can cover all the bases he just asked for.
Okay.
I could wait, but I
All right, go ahead.
okay.
Yeah,
So I
I've
can
seen
give
that.
you in public. I can give you in private as well. In public, there's 8 kids in my family. Okay, my mom split from my dad whenever we were really young. Okay, so it was just her, just my mom with 8 kids running around the fucking grocery store. Okay, somebody like 3 of us are fucking stealing shit off the shelf. Like 2 of us are crying to get shit off the shelf. Like, hey, will you buy this? Will you buy this? Will you buy this? Like, it's not just as simple as like, oh, hey, my kid's just like crying and like I just want to like beat the shit out of him instead of like trying to have like a conversation with them. In private, my 2 brothers, like one of my brothers like beating the shit out of the other brother, like literally like just uppercutting my other brother into the fucking wall. Like there were 6 boys in my family. We used to fight all the fucking time. So it's like you paint it as such a simple picture as like, oh well, yeah, you just as a parent, you just want to like assert your dominance over your kid and like beat the shit out of them all the time. It's really not that simple all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Can I respond?
Okay, wait,
I
no.
would like to respond to it first because he was talking to me, Fanatiq. I'm really sorry. I know
You
have
asked me a
pile on,
question.
but
You asked me a question, but go ahead.
The only way that you
Yeah,
have a shot
I want to
is,
go
like,
too.
Go
Like,
ahead.
you're the
Go
fuck-
I know,
ahead.
unless
Go
Brian
ahead.
hits me, you'll
Go
have a
ahead.
fucking shot.
Go ahead.
So for Nacho, bro, I get it. Your mom probably had it really hard. Do you understand that even like if that was like the quote unquote only option for your mom, that it made your entire family worse off? That like the empirical literature that like Charlotte can cite easily right now is that made you all worse off by like the fact of being hit. Do you get that? Like, I'm sorry, then your anecdotal evidence doesn't mean shit to me.
Okay,
I'm
that's
really,
why.
really
Thank you.
sorry.
Now, can I respond? Wait, Nacho. Let me respond, please, because I didn't get to respond to
Yeah,
his
go
stupid
ahead.
nonsense earlier. God, I
I
should
tried
have.
to condense it.
No, it was awful, and I shouldn't have let you. I knew it was terrible. No one else can speak for me ever. Anyway,
I tried
so
to
the point,
condense it as much as I could.
The point is, Hans, your framing is already ridiculous because no one here has ever mentioned that it's degrees of frustration that should be the allowing factor for spanking
You know
your
what,
children.
Macri,
No
you said
one.
it's
No one.
embarrassing.
I explained. Do we gotta mute you again? Hey. Listen. You're gonna shut the hell up and let me talk. If you're listening and speaking, That's why he has to mute you, because you don't know how to listen. Shut the hell up. Anyway,
Like a rowdy child.
thank you.
But
Sounds like you. So it looks like you weren't spanked as a kid, because you don't got that down.
Yeah, he
Freaking
fucking needs
ridiculous.
it, bro.
Anyway, so
Okay,
my
wait.
point. Hold on, I'm gonna finish. Anyway, so the point is, no one here was ever talking about its degrees of frustration that should be the allowing factor for whether or not you can spank your kids. You don't spank your kids out of frustration. You don't spank your kids out of anger. You don't spank your kids from emotion. You spank your kids from a recognition that this is something that is so egregious that it needs immediate response, such that you want to weed it out, something that is a great departure from something that you know that the child is reasonably able to assess he shouldn't do, and you feel that it's egregious enough to warrant a spanking as a last result with blatant disrespect. That's what the criteria is. You can be frustrated to no freaking end with something that a child doesn't understand. It wouldn't give you the right to spank them. You can be frustrated to no end, or you can feel that a child is embarrassing and it doesn't give you a right to spank them. There's so many different factors that we would be talking about that anything you can come up with, I'm saying this is a criteria, that's it. Now, if you want to ask me a question about the criteria I said, then that's fine. But if you're going to again straw man and come up with some other idea about what constitutes spankability, then again, you're not engaging and it just shows your inability to have conversations. You're looking ridiculous right now. Stop it.
Okay, can I just ask? Wait, can I go after Hans, please?
No. It's got to be Hans can respond. Then we got to go to Ryuji, who also was asked a question too.
All right,
And
so
then we go to Sen.
Fanatic, I know you want to say like, oh, like there's so many factors to like why I would want to hit the kid. But like what I'm asking is specifically in response to statements made by both you and in particular, like Black Ryuji or whatever his name is, right? Can I just call you Ryu? Because like I keep like I keep trying to read it and like the words are hard. So like in particular, right? You said like the kid is being embarrassing. So this isn't for Fanatic. I don't want anyone to save you. You literally said the kid is being loud and it's embarrassing in public. So my question is, at what point does it become so embarrassing that you decide to hit the kid, as opposed to saying like, oh, maybe hitting the kid will make it look even more embarrassing in public because I'm slapping the shit out of a child. Okay, like what?
Dude, you're not slapping the shit out of a child, bro. Like what? You keep making up these fucking. Oh man, you just walk up to the kid and he's
You literally
like,
gave a hypothetical, and Prime gave a hypothetical where you couldn't restrain them.
oh my,
No,
dude.
Holy shit! Are you
Are
serious?
you like backhanding
Oh my
children in the
God,
fucking
you're
Walmart
You are
line?
bad faith at
Yeah,
this
like
point.
who
You are bad faith.
who is
He's
doing this?
literally
Who-
5 shots in.
fuck?
Are you serious?
You're a bad faith in it. You're so bad
Oh my
faith.
God.
How many times have I said that? How many slowly I've said like
explain
you
to
could
me.
restrain the
Tell me
child?
about it.
Prime,
You can
I've said
restrain the child,
Are you
bro.
drinking
Like,
Fireball?
Prime, he's not bad
No,
faith. He's not bad faith. He's just
No,
not
we can't.
listening. I literally gave my entire. So
Can't restrain them.
I
So we can restrain them, so we don't have to hit them. So when can we hit them then? Like, I like, what's
He's-
the difference between restraining and
He's not being bad faith. He's just being unintelligent. I gave my. He's not listening.
Okay,
Rather,
oh,
I
so
gave my
unintelligent.
entire. I gave.
I know you can say, like,
I
like, literally
gave.
nothing for
I
5 minutes,
gave.
Fanatic,
I
like, I'm just very
gave.
curious about what
I
you're saying,
gave. I gave my.
Okay.
I gave my entire soliloquy in which I was saying that there is a hyper limitation on when a child can be spanked. And then after saying there's a bevy of reasons you can come up with, and none of them would be spankability, the only one is a very specific criteria that I laid out. And then he goes and he says, I know that you just said that there's so many different reasons why you would want to hit your kid. You're not actually listening, bro. And I think this is just not even good for conversation.
I'm asking for a scenario. I'm asking for your criteria. Because, like, if you're
I
saying,
gave it
oh,
specifically multiple times.
No. You said there's a lot of factors. So what I'm asking is,
Oh my
where do
God.
we cross the? No, we're literally. I'm asking, where do we cross the threshold?
why is this so fucking hard? This is not
On any of these
understanding.
given factors.
He's drinking.
on
I don't want to
any
have this
given
conversation.
factors.
I'm not talking to him anymore.
Oh,
He's
I'm,
drinking. He's
I'm so
drinking.
sorry. Then you can leave. Oh my God, like, dude, like, I'm already blasted, but like, I'm 1,000 times
so
more
you
carried
asked
than
me-
you, and
you
I don't
asked
have
me
to beat
to-
my kids, even when I'm drunk. I promise, I'll never hit my kids. Unlike you guys, who are probably justifying it right now because you feel some sort of guilt because you were hit and you don't.
No one is justifying
Jesus
just
Christ!
fucking
I'm not talking to him
bad
anymore.
faith.
Okay,
Oh,
so let me
bad faith.
let me
Tell
posit
me,
a question
like,
for you
okay,
guys.
tell me,
Let's
is
go
it
to
Let me posit
Sen.
a question.
Hold on.
Wait,
It's Sen's turn. Okay.
Don't
let's
worry,
go.
guys. I'm not
We gotta move on. We're gonna go to Sen, and then we're
Okay.
gonna go to Jason, then King of William, and Studmeat.
Okay, so like,
Stupid.
and I'm gonna like hitting on what Jason said earlier as well. There's a lot of shit we're talking about. I have 2 questions for the pro spankers that are in this call. Number 1, what is a scenario where doing what Jason said, we're just giving them like a massive bear hug, is not an acceptable solution that would probably be more productive than spanking the child. And two, let's say the child doesn't stop when they're in public after you spank them. Are you going to whip out the belt? How hard are you going to go on this child to make sure that they stop? Like, is it any means necessary? I'm confused by like what we're talking about here.
I don't think. Well, here I'll answer it. First off, I don't believe. First off, I don't really think. I think it's not a good idea to be spanking children in front of other people. For several reasons. For one,
You're just gonna defend like
for,
using
for,
it, so like
for,
that's
for
fine.
one, you're gonna shut
I
up.
don't defend it,
You're,
but
for
here's
one,
me defending
for
it.
one, you're gonna shut up and let me finish, and then I'm gonna continue. All right. So anyway, so one, I think that one of the harmful effects of spanking a kid in front of other people is that you're likely to run into a situation in which one, you can traumatize other children. If they're from a non-spanking household, then I would imagine them witnessing a kid being spanked could be somewhat traumatic to them, I guess. Two, I think it could be really alarming and like to other parents. A lot of parents, some people might be really objectionable to that, or like it can have trauma from being abused or things like that. I think that's harmful. Three, I think it does a different sort of social harm and emotional embarrassment to a child to be popped or spanked in front of other people. I think that those kind of things are things that you probably want to avoid. So I think most cases I would never advocate for spanking a kid in public or in a grocery store or things like that. Then on top of that,
So where do you advocate for hitting them?
then on top of that, I would say
I mean, a slight tap on the hand is enough. Like,
Right.
like, come on.
But then to
Oh,
answer
so
your question,
the back of the hand is
oh,
okay, but
God.
like the front of the
And
hand, can you
then
give me like
ignoring the
like,
drunk
basic
guy,
physicality of, like, why
ignoring the
it's
drunk
okay?
guy. This is so
Nobody's
crazy to me.
fucking jack slapping their
Yeah.
fucking kids. Like,
So
what
anyway,
the fuck are you talking about?
wait, please don't entertain him when he's being ridiculous. That's how you derail and successfully derail and beleaguer a conversation.
All right.
He's not contributing. Interact with the people who are actually trying to have a decent conversation. The people who can capably actually interact and engage. All right. So anyway, so the idea would be to answer your question, blue shirt guy in the bottom left, about what would be the appropriate time. As I kind of laid out like just the general principle, but let's go into a specific. Maybe you have, I don't know, a 7 or 8-year-old kid, and you're like constantly telling them not to play with matches or something like that, and they continue to do it, and maybe like it's starting to get more and more dangerous. You find out that they brought matches to school or something, and like they're going to do something at a school or whatever, or something like something really severe. And it's like, look, at this part, you can literally light the house on fire while we're sleeping. It could be particularly dangerous. Or you've really communicated to the 7-year-old kid, hey, you do not play with matches. They're dangerous and yada, 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 yada. You've like sat them down. You've talked to them. You've used all resources that you're possibly aware of. And you're being decent and reasonable and trying your best and not just like lightly talking to them and saying, well, I tried my best, right? Like you literally exhausted all the resources that you're aware of. But this child, it just literally refuses. And you wake up one night to find out that they're playing with matches and lighting them in your freaking living room. It's like, if I didn't catch this behavior, this could be disastrous. It could literally be death for my children, my wife, my other kids, so on and so forth, right? For him. So in those kind of cases, it's like, man, if I've exhausted everything, I know that you understand how bad this is and that you shouldn't be doing it, and you're literally being as disrespectful as possible, and you're choosing to do this thing that I've very clearly communicated to you, and I know that you know better. At that point, I would say probably some sort of light spanking would be necessary in order to get that child's attention.
What
in
if
that
spanking
case.
doesn't work?
Wait,
How about I do a
yeah,
hypothetical now? What happens
Can
if
I-
spanking?
hold on,
what
hold on,
happens-
hold on.
No, what
Hold on.
happens
If
if the
there's
Can I
an
just
hypothetical?
issue with
get
pyromania,
response from me?
Oh my God.
It's sent.
I don't know
So
Okay. So like I think that's nice, but okay, let's say we'll use this scenario where they're playing with matches. First, probably best to avoid giving your kid matches.
You don't have to give them to them.
Try
They
as
pound
hard
them.
as possible to do. Try as hard as way to get it away from them as far
Why
as
are you
confiscation.
saying that? Come
Let
on,
me
man.
finish.
This is
No,
not
wait, what
real.
the hell? Why
Wait,
are you
so,
letting your
so is it so hard?
Wait,
no,
no,
no.
I didn't
So
even
is it
finish
so
what I
hard
was
to-
saying.
let him finish. Let him finish.
I was gonna say you can try as hard as possible to confiscate the matches if that's not an option. And the kid like stops doing no matter what. Like you do everything besides spanking.
I'm cleaning out.
What
my
happens if
bowl
they
and doing
don't
this
stop
blue
when you
shit.
spank them?
Sorry.
What are you gonna
Yeah.
do when they don't stop after you spank them?
Are
Yeah.
you wait?
I think there is plenty of literature that clearly
Don't
demonstrates.
answer the question, Fanatic. How do you
No.
escalate?
I was literally I'm going to mute you. I'm permanently muting you on this panel. I'm not interacting with you anymore. I think there's plenty of literature on this on this topic that clearly demonstrates that parents parents have done assessments that where they tested to see whether or not they felt whether or not they could associate compliance with spanking, and clearly for the vast majority of parents, they definitely felt like spanking did correlate with correspondence or compliance, and so both short term and long term. So for me, I don't know. I've never encountered a situation in which someone has, like, where you've exhausted all options and then spanking was completely ineffective. That sounds kind of unrealistic to me.
So you're just gonna make stuff up.
All of this is like
Wait, what
You,
what
you've
am I
never
making
read
up?
any research that
beyond
says
what's
that.
normal.
There is
But
no
you
such
guys are making
study.
shit up.
Because
But you guys are making
I've been
shit up.
spamming this analysis literally the
Right.
past fucking 5
Okay.
minutes.
Red
The
Charlotte.
analysis
shit.
found that spanking children was not more effective than giving children timeouts in eliciting immediate compliance,
Mhm.
and that spanking led to a reduction in long-term compliance. All you are doing is making it worse.
Okay, so
That is it.
so no, I gotta respond. I gotta respond. I'm gonna respond. Anyway, so I think it's really ridiculous for the person who can only label people to accuse someone else of being bad faith in a conversation. I didn't make that up. The literature, I can find the literature for you, and if I do, if I find the literature for you that clearly says that parents associate spanking, people felt there was a study done in which they questioned parents about was there an association between long-term compliance and short-term compliance in spanking, and that overwhelmingly parents agreed that spanking was associated with long-term compliance. You're saying I made that up?
Wait, are you claiming that there is a
Oh, yeah, me
poll, right? Basically,
A
essentially
study.
what this is.
A
where
study.
no, it's a
And I
it's a
propose
poll.
things.
A poll that where a percentage of parents said that spanking fixed the problem. Is that what you're claiming?
That spanking, they felt spanking led to long-term and short-term compliance. That's what the study said.
Yeah, I mean, seeing as my thing is like a literature review, right, and literally goes over the entire body of literature on the subject. Like,
You've read the entire body of literature on spanking and not
This is
spanking?
crazy.
Yes,
So anyway,
this is what
so
the literature
so look,
reviews
hey,
are.
hey,
This
we're
is
not
literally-
we're not gonna let her do this.
Hey,
Holy
Nacho, hey,
shit.
Nacho. This is
Why are you
literally
We're
laughing?
not-
That's a
Wait,
common thing.
why are you laughing?
about
Why are you
topics.
laughing?
We're
Why
not-
are you laughing?
We were
What is
laughing.
do you know what a literature review is?
we-
Do you know what a literature
They
review is?
overview
Yes or
Listen,
no?
all of the major
Listen,
papers.
Do
in
you
what
know
we're not
what
what we're not
literature
gonna
review
what we're
is?
not gonna let
Why
you
are
do.
laughing?
What we're
Finish,
not gonna
shut
let
up,
you.
Shut up.
What,
Shut your mouth.
What we're not gonna let you do.
Nacho, answer the question.
What we're not
Answer
gonna
the
let you do.
question.
What we're not gonna
Answer
let
the
you do
question.
is derail
Okay,
this
stop,
conversation.
Stop.
Right. What we're not gonna
Stop.
let.
Oh my god, can you make him stop?
Make me stop.
Uh,
You're the one that's
He's not even
literally.
involved
You're
in
the
this
little.
exchange.
You were because
Shut
you
the fuck
you
up.
you literally called me a
okay,
liar.
Everyone shut the fuck
Oh
up.
my
I will
God,
decide
bro.
who talks. I will decide who talks. Everyone shut the fuck up. Thank you. Great. Me, not you, will decide who talks. Fanatic, finish your point. Charlotte, you want to ask something to Nacho? Fine. We'll do that. Fanatic, finish your point.
So there,
Hans, you're on the list. At the very fucking end of that list. All
Thank
right,
you.
go ahead.
There is literature out there that clearly suggests that parents have associated this for a very long time. Parents, people who have actual kids, not just random people on the internet, that they did associate it with long-term and short-term compliance. And so that what I'm basing that off of is that study from parents. So this idea now of creating this hypothetical in which, what about it when you've exhausted literally all examples and spanking doesn't work? I don't know how to interact with that. I don't know what to do with that. I would say if you've exhausted literally all options and spanking still isn't working, I don't know. I guess you got a real problem on your hand. But what you've created is an unfalsifiable claim, right? Like it's literally, what about when there is no solution? And I don't have a solution for the situation in which there is no solution. So yeah, I don't know. That doesn't do anything to the actual conversation.
You're
But
literally
blue shirt guy, I did answer the question you were asking about what the specific requirements would be for a spanking. I hope you accept that answer.
Yeah, I'm red shirt guy. as
Moving
well.
on. Moving
Dude,
on.
shut the
moving on.
fuck up. You
So,
can't say black, bro. Come on, man.
Yeah. So hold on, Red Shaw, you quickly got something for
He's
Nacho.
still
and then we're gonna
laughing.
go to
Why is this so
well, then
funny?
we're gonna move down the list. Okay. So
Nacho, what is a literature review? Tell me.
I can't give you the exact definition of what a literature review
Then
is, but you telling no, don't fucking try to play semantics with me. You telling me like I have read the entire I asked you, have you read the entire literature of
Yes, I have
spanking
read
and
this
not
literature
spanking?
review. Yes. which is a over.
No,
Again,
you're
again.
adding
Wait,
a fucking word to the end of literature. Like,
oh my god. Do you?
you-
You're just admitting
listen
that you
to
don't
Red
know what the
Charlotte.
fuck you're talking about.
I asked you a question. I said, hey, you've read the entire literature of spanking.
You think
and
me adding review
spanking.
to literature to make
This is
literature
just
review
you
is
trying to
semantics?
detract from
It's
the
not
fucking-
semantics.
So
A literature review is
You did
literally
detract from the fucking.
It's
Oh
a
my God.
meta-analysis. Literature
Like,
is a meta-analysis.
Jesus Christ.
Hold on. It's a meta-analysis of the literature, right? So, like, rather than
Right, but-
a person having to read each and every one, researchers look at that and they can do it with researchers' eye, understanding, like, for instance, the statistics involved in each of the research, and then they're compiling information for you, right?
Right, but
what
that's not
you did.
right. Exactly. I didn't say, have you done a literature review? I said, have
Oh
you
my
read
God.
all the
Okay.
lititerature?
Okay, all right.
Fucking
That's the
rewind
purpose
the
of the
fucking
literature review is to save
Yeah.
people from having to
So
go
if you wanna
individual
play
study from
fucking-
study.
If you want to play semantics, go back and watch
This
the fucking.
isn't
not
semantics.
semantics.
This is what
Like,
I
oh my
asked
God.
you.
This is not so,
word
okay,
for
all right.
word.
Okay, we're moving on. Don't care. This is dumb.
Jesus Christ.
Jason. You're muted. Jason.
You're muted.
For the first time, I muted when I didn't want to be. It's been the other way around all night. Sorry about that. So really, listen. There's going to be very few and far betweens where like light taps. Like we're talking about. Like, do you want your child to put their hand on the stove, or do you want them to have a light tap on the hand? That's different. That's learning at a very, very basic rudimentary level. I still would not want to do it unless you're talking about very, 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 very extreme situations, such as a child is going to harm themselves or others in the immediacy, right? Oftentimes you can do other things. You can grab them. You can do other things to prevent that, right? You can push their hand away. You don't necessarily have to tap it. There's other methods, okay? I firmly do not believe that spanking has to be integrated into child raising, no matter how hard the child is. If you have a child that is choosing to set their house on fire and they're playing with matches, then maybe they need to see a psychiatrist and get mental help, because that sounds like a bigger issue. Like, I would then, if my child was 7 and they were looking to go light houses on fire and they couldn't stop playing with fire, I'd be like, okay, we need to seek some counseling for you. You need some psychiatric care. Something's going on here. This is not right. I would try to do preventative measures that would lead me to not having to spank them or do something like that. I'm not saying we live in a perfect society where everybody's got access to medical care, but we do the best we can, right? I mean, and that's would be my framing on your argument about the kid with the matches. I think that's going to be few and far between, and I still wouldn't be there.
Wait, please, Jason. Come on, hold on. So you're saying that children, like a child that has a curiosity, it's not that he's intending to burn a house down, but a child that has curiosity to fire. You believe that that means some sort of way that that kid has mental health issues?
It could possibly be, or there's other things going on in their life that would evoke that kind of response, especially after you
Curiosity?
explain. Listen, after you explain
No,
to
because
them
we literally
that
can't
this
hear.
after you explain to them that this is dangerous, okay, and they have that understanding, you've had the conversation with them. If they're continuing to do it, then I don't know that spanking or swatting or anything like that's going to change anything. I think you need to get some psychiatric intervention.
You need
Hans,
psychiatric intervention for
Hans,
the
someone
kids.
paid to mute you for 10 minutes. All right, take an L's. I just gave
Oh
$10
God, thank
donation.
God.
Okay. They
Please
didn't
hold
mute me,
that
did
L.
they?
No.
Okay.
No.
I want to say, in special education, again, just going to that again, I wouldn't.
Hon, William. We got a list. We got a list of people. So finish your point, and then we got to move on. Fanatic. Finish your point.
I was just gonna say really quickly, like I don't think that there's any reasonable expectation to say that because a kid is curious about something like fire, which is incredibly attractive. I remember as a little kid, like just the idea, looking at it, seeing the light, seeing it bright up and all that, like that was incredibly attractive. I used to love lighting matches. I knew I wasn't allowed to, but it was something I was very curious about. I never wanted to set a freaking house on fire, but I remember loving to do it. I remember one time taking matches and lighting them against my church building. I didn't need psychiatric help for it. I just wanted to see matches. I saw matches and we had them. We found them and they were in the kitchen in this area at the freaking church. And I remember finding them and thinking, oh man, here's the matches. And I thought like, oh, like me and a friend, I was a little kid. kid 3 years old, and we were like literally striking them up against the dang door. I remember that. Like, I didn't need psychiatric help. It was, sometimes
But you were
children.
talking about a 7-year-old, and you brought up the scenario about burning their house down. That's the reason I brought
It
that
wasn't
up.
it wasn't that they were
No,
intentional.
somebody else brought that up.
No, it was me, and I wasn't saying that they were intentionally trying to burn their house down. It was just the idea that a kid likes playing with matches, and they don't seem to they don't seem to respect the idea and the gravity of the nature of that. We know that the freaking front cortex, the thing that's like associated with reasoning and risk assessment, doesn't fully develop until you're 25. So a 7-year-old might not be able to truly understand, or might not
Right,
think
is
the
exactly
wait.
why you get some counseling intervention.
They might not think all the way through to the end. And you can explain it to them. This is really dangerous, and you shouldn't play with it. But they might not. They might truly still not want to truly accept what you're saying. And in those cases, it's like, look, even if you don't understand, well, you will respect the fact that I'm telling you this is something you can't do, even if you can't grasp it. And some of those times, even if you're refusing to, right? Because sometimes children aren't going to understand the gravity of the nature of why you're telling them not to do some things. But they should at least be able to respect you and understand that because you said no, the answer is no. And when a child tends to be very defiant in those kind of situations where it's something that you seem like you're struggling to be able to get them to understand why they shouldn't do that thing, but they are very clear and understand that this is something they shouldn't do, in those cases, in abject defiance, I think in those cases spanking is necessary.
So let's go to William. Let's go to William. Study Pan Hans.
Thank you. I wouldn't advise that. But I would just say, like one of the things that I, got teaching was like I wouldn't judge parents. I don't try to guess where they're coming from. I always try to think the best of them, because you want the best possible outcome for the kids, So I don't try to engage them or like get into any kind of judgment thing. And obviously, embarrassment plays a role in some of these things where a kid is acting up in a place where they shouldn't be, and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't try to increase the embarrassment or like try to make it some big hard ass point about it. But I would say, I would definitely distribute literature about corporal punishment or whatever to parents if they were interested in it, or I'd have it available or something like that if I thought it was a problem. I don't really look into it that much. Of course, you're a mandated reporter, so you do look for bruises and cuts, But I think that the point is that, you really should just respect your kid. It's a human being, and so are you. And when you hit your kid, you're basically saying you can't respect me, and that may be the case. Like where you're in a situation where there's so many things going on at once that it just can't function. And I think people need to be easy on that. No, but that's a thing. But when you're hitting your kid, you are doing damage to your kid, and it's going to be a long-term thing, and it's a power thing. That's it.
So, the Fanatiq, you've been muted for an hour.
Hey.
So that's a thing.
I love y'all.
How much does that cost?
5,000 bits. That's
50 baht. Oh my god.
It's a monetary spanking from Hans.
This